The moment you say no to lust, the ground beneath your soul shifts. Not metaphorically, spiritually. You've just declared war in a realm most people pretend doesn't exist. Because lust isn't just a craving. It's a spirit, one that's ancient, calculating, and territorial. It knows your history. It knows your father's weaknesses, your mother's secret wounds. It has walked through your bloodline, generation after generation, feeding silently on shame. And when you, the chosen one, dare to resist, you don't just break a habit. You rupture a contract. You shatter a throne it thought it owned inside you. That no isn't small. It's a nuclear blast in the unseen. Demons panic. Angels rise. The spirit realm responds. But few ever talk about what really happens in that moment. The shaking, the silence, the retaliation. Because when you refuse to bow to lust, you don't just walk away from sin, you step into destiny. Stay. What you're about to hear isn't a sermon. It's a war briefing. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly why hell fears your purity and why heaven has been waiting for your resistance. When you say no to lust, you're not just avoiding temptation. You're pulling a spiritual sword from its sheath and stabbing it into the heart of darkness. That simple act of resistance isn't small in heaven's eyes. It's massive. It's spiritual warfare at its rawest level. Because lust is not just a feeling. It's a weapon from hell, forged to hijack your mind, dull your spirit, and separate you from your divine authority. Every time you say yes to lust, the enemy tightens the leash, not just on your actions, but on your identity. Your soul starts to forget who you are. But the moment you say no, even when everything in you wants to give in, the realm of darkness trembles, because that no is spiritual proof that the addiction is losing its grip. You've punched a hole in a demonic pattern that may have held your bloodline captive for decades. Lust is a spirit that survives on silence, secrecy, and shame. It whispers lies into your identity. You'll never be free. Everyone struggles with this. You're too far gone. But when you speak no with conviction, you break the silence. You call the demon out. You expose it to light, and demons hate the light. In that instant, the spirit realm responds. Demons shriek because they've been evicted from their hiding place. You may feel inner resistance, confusion, or even exhaustion. Not because you're weak, but because there's warfare happening around you. You didn't just say no to a screen, a fantasy, or a moment of pleasure. You said no to a spirit that thought it owned real estate inside your soul. What's more powerful, lust pulling you into momentary escape, or the strength it takes to reject it and reclaim your mind? Every act of resistance is a reclaiming. You take back your thoughts. You take back your will. You take back your calling. That single no may be the most prophetic thing you've spoken in years. God sees it, angels are drawn to it, and the enemy fears it. Because when you say no to lust, you realign yourself with heaven's flow. You begin to hear again, feel again, discern again. Purity restores sensitivity. It sharpens your spiritual vision. And when that happens, your authority begins to rise. That's why the spirit realm shakes. Because your no isn't just a rejection of sin, it's the resurrection of your divine identity. The real war isn't just about pleasure. It's about purpose. The enemy doesn't just want your body. He wants your influence, your future, your seed. And when you resist lust, you're not just resisting sin, you're resisting sabotage. You're stepping out of slavery and into spiritual dominion. So don't be surprised when the atmosphere changes, when hell screams, when warfare comes. That's not defeat, that's confirmation. You just made hell nervous, and heaven just took note. 2. The ancestral web. Lust's generational assignment. Lust is not random, it's strategic. It doesn't knock on your door simply because you're weak. It arrives because it has rights. Ancestral rights, ancient permissions passed down through bloodlines. Unspoken, unchallenged, and spiritually binding. Many people think they struggle with lust because they lack willpower, but willpower doesn't explain why certain patterns keep repeating in your family. Adultery, addiction, secret pornography habits, premature pregnancies, broken marriages, cycles of shame. These are not coincidences, they are assignments. Lust has studied your bloodline. It knows your family history better than you do. Spirits of lust aren't just interested in you. They're territorial. They stake claims over generations, entering through open doors. Sexual trauma, abuse, infidelity, occult practices, even unrepented sins from ancestors long buried. What began with one man's compromise becomes a chain that wraps around sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons. What was once one woman's pain becomes a spiritual veil over daughters and granddaughters. And here's the terrifying truth. If you don't confront it, you become the next willing host. But when you say no, something radical happens. You don't just resist sin, you begin a spiritual revolt. You're tearing down strongholds that were built decades, even centuries ago. Lust isn't shocked by your temptation, it's threatened by your rebellion. Because when you resist, you threaten its lineage. Demons don't just want your fall, they want your children. They want the generational gate to stay wide open. And every time you entertain that lustful thought, click that image, justify that secret habit, you're reinforcing an invisible agreement made long before you were born. But the moment you resist, the contract begins to tear. Your purity isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You're not just protecting yourself. You're declaring war on spiritual inheritance. You're choosing to become the curse breaker, the one heaven anoints and hell fears, the one who says it ends with me. That's why resistance is so violent in the spirit. You'll feel tired, tormented, tempted beyond reason, because it's not just about you. You're fighting the battles your ancestors ran from. You're cleaning bloodlines with your no. But remember this. What enters through one man can also end through one. Your obedience becomes divine interruption. Your resistance becomes a spiritual alarm. Angels are released. Generational altars begin to crack. And the blood of Jesus, once abstract, begins to move like fire through your family tree. So don't underestimate that simple act of saying no. It is heaven's hammer, hell's headache, and the first act in a new generational legacy. You are not weak. You are chosen. You are not just resisting lust. You are rewriting history. 3. Lust. The master of counterfeit intimacy. Lust is not just a physical urge. It is a spirit, subtle, seductive, and spiritual in nature. It doesn't just target your body. It targets your soul. It doesn't want a moment of pleasure. It wants a lifetime of disconnection from God. Lust is the master of counterfeit intimacy, and its goal is simple, to make you feel temporarily full while leaving you eternally empty. Real intimacy is rooted in connection, emotional, spiritual, divine. It's where vulnerability meets trust, where love is sacrificial and covenantal. But lust takes this holy design and perverts it. It offers the illusion of connection, but behind the curtain is manipulation, bondage, and spiritual numbness. It makes you feel wanted, but only as long as you're consuming or being consumed. The moment it's over, you're not satisfied. You're more hollow than before. Lust doesn't knock loudly. It whispers in the quiet. It doesn't show up as evil. It disguises itself as comfort, curiosity, natural desire. It's not always aggressive. Sometimes it feels gentle, even romantic. That's the danger, because what looks like love isn't. What feels like closeness is actually separation from God, from others, and from your true self. This spirit doesn't just want your eyes, it wants your attention, your imagination, your longing. It hijacks the very part of you that desires union and turns it into a weapon against your own soul. It promises intimacy without responsibility, connection without covenant, pleasure without purpose. But real love, God's love, never comes that way. It doesn't rush. It doesn't exploit. It builds. It heals. It honors. The problem is, once you've fed on lust long enough, you begin to confuse it with love. You start to believe that attraction is affection, that chemistry is compatibility, that access to your body means someone values your soul. But that's the trick. Lust rewires how you think, what you feel, and how you view relationships. And once it's embedded in your system, it doesn't just affect you in private. It bleeds into how you treat people, how you worship, how you lead. Lust isn't satisfied with the act. It wants to corrupt your blueprint. If it can take your God-given desire for closeness and twist it, it knows you'll run to counterfeits every time you feel lonely, broken, or unseen. That's the real trap. Not the sin itself, but what the sin replaces. Real connection with the Father. And that's why saying no to lust is more than moral discipline. It's spiritual warfare. You are not rejecting pleasure. You are rejecting the parasite attached to it. You are saying, I will not trade eternal wholeness for temporary relief. You were created for divine intimacy, a sacred connection with God that fulfills what lust can only mimic. Lust gives you a taste. God gives you a feast. Choose wisely. 4. The heavenly response. When God sees a warrior rise, heaven doesn't respond to comfort. It responds to courage. When you say no to lust, not once, but with conviction, again and again, the spirit realm takes notice, but it's not just hell that trembles. Heaven moves. God is not passive. He is not distant. He is watching, not from a throne of indifference, but from the perspective of a father who trained his child for battle. And when that child stands up against lust, one of the most ancient and seductive spirits in the demonic arsenal. Heaven doesn't whisper, it roars. Your resistance is not weakness. It is worship. Obedience in private is louder in heaven than applause in public. You may feel isolated, unnoticed, even weary, but in the courts of the Almighty, your no to lust is treated like the sound of a war trumpet. Angels are dispatched. Protection is extended. Strength is infused. The enemy tries to convince you that your resistance is insignificant, that no one sees, that God is silent. But silence is not absence. Silence is strategy. The moment you say no, God begins preparing the next phase of your transformation. The testing is never for punishment. It's for positioning. You're not just being freed from lust. You're being elevated into something greater. You're being made into someone hell dreads, the man or woman who has authority over their flesh, and therefore authority in the spirit. Heaven doesn't reward resistance with comfort. It rewards it with power. Think about it. Jesus didn't begin his miracles until after he said no to the temptations in the wilderness, including lust, pride, and power. His authority came not because he escaped the fire, but because he endured it. So when you rise up and declare war on lust, heaven surrounds you like it did Elisha's servant, with unseen armies ready to defend your decision. You are never standing alone. You are standing backed by the full weight of the kingdom. And let this sink in. Every time you resist, you're not just breaking something in your own life, you're changing what your bloodline will carry into the future. You are setting a divine precedent. Heaven doesn't just see a struggler, it sees a warrior, a deliverer for generations. God is not waiting for you to be perfect. He is waiting for you to choose him, even when it costs. Every no is a yes to him, and every yes echoes like thunder in the throne room. So if you're in the fight, stay in it. Heaven isn't just aware of your battle, it's invested in your victory. God doesn't crown comfort, he crowns the overcomers. And if you don't quit, you will be one of them. When you say no to lust, it's not just spirits in the unseen that react. People around you will too. Not because they consciously want to pull you down, but because darkness often uses the familiar to fight what it fears. You need to understand this. When you begin to resist the spirit of lust, you become spiritually disruptive. Your decision to walk in purity irritates the unhealed, unrepentant, and spiritually compromised individuals around you, sometimes even the ones closest to you. Because the spirit realm operates through human vessels, just as God uses people to advance his kingdom, the enemy uses people to maintain bondage. And when you break out, the spirits still attached to others feel threatened. That's when you'll see strange behavior. People who once encouraged you will suddenly go silent. Some will mock you or tempt you without knowing why. Old flames may reappear. Conversations shift subtly. Invitations to compromise seem to multiply. Even friends you trusted may begin projecting guilt, shame, or doubt toward your decision. It's not always about them. It's about what's operating through them. The enemy's tactic is ancient. If he can't tempt you directly, he'll work through relationships. He will stir up emotion. He will whisper through familiar voices. He will press on your loneliness, hoping to trigger a relapse. Because if he can get you to second-guess your stand, he knows the door can reopen. This is why spiritual discernment is critical. Not everyone around you can walk with you through your purification process. Not everyone around you is submitted to the same standard you're trying to live by. Some are still unknowingly in partnership with the very spirit you are fighting to cast out of your life. But here's what you must remember. Your purity is not just for you. It's a weapon, a mirror, a declaration. When you resist, you expose, and what's hidden in others begins to squirm in discomfort. This is why you'll face rejection, false accusations, and subtle manipulation. You didn't provoke people. You disturbed the demons they never confronted. Expect it, but don't hate them. This isn't a war against flesh and blood. These people are not your enemies. The Spirit's using them, and your role is not to fight back with bitterness, but to hold your ground in grace and truth. The hidden war is very real, but you are not alone. Every time you hold the line, heaven backs you. Every time you remain silent when falsely accused, you rise in authority. Every time you choose purity over pressure, the chains weaken, not just for you, but for everyone watching your life. And the more consistent your resistance becomes, the less power these vessels of darkness will have over you, until the only voice you follow is the one who called you out of bondage and into purpose. 6. Isolation. Lust's final weapon. Lust doesn't just tempt, it strategizes. And one of its final most dangerous weapons is isolation. Not just physical separation, but emotional, mental, and spiritual loneliness designed to wear you down when temptation fails. When you say no to lust, a shift happens in the spirit. But here's what no one tells you. After the resistance, often comes the silence. Suddenly the rush is gone. The distractions are gone. The people you used to engage with feel distant. The inner noise of pleasure is replaced by an eerie quiet. And that's when the real attack begins. You'll start to feel like something is missing, but it's not God. It's the counterfeit comfort you once relied on. Lust had disguised itself as connection, release, relief. It gave you dopamine in exchange for your discipline. And now that you've refused its
Lust final weapon. Lust does not tempt, it strategizes, and one of step final most dangerous is isolation, not just physical separation but emotional, mental, and spiritual loneliness. When you say no to lust, I shift spirits in the spirit, but no one tell after the resistance often comes the silence is gone, the distractions are gone, the people used to engage to feel distant. Pleasure is by an eerie quit, and when the real begins.